The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the speakers or authors and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by the producers of this broadcast. The material herein is for entertainment purposes only.
Welcome to Scariest Paranormal Radio Podcast. I'm Kalila Smith, and tonight we're going to be talking to Charmaine Rich. She is a tour guide for haunted history tours in New Orleans. She's also a paranormal investigator, and she's had some pretty phenomenal experiences in an area in New Orleans which we all consider to be maybe a portal to the other side. Welcome, Charmaine.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on. So you can tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in paranormal research and everything.
Okay. I am born and raised in New Orleans. My husband's a Marine. We went away for 20 years, but now we're back. It seems like the city was calling me back to come home. I have always been fascinated with the paranormal, and now that I'm older and I have more and more experiences, that the spirits have always been around me and have always talked to me since I was a very little girl. It seems that they always spoke to me when the winds would blow. So I really like it when the winds blow. I feel like I'm not by myself in this big old world when that happens. I met you, Kalila, through the classes, taking your classes, learning so much. You just basically opened up a whole new world for me that was there, and I just didn't see it. So,
and now you can't unsee it.
Exactly. Yeah, now I definitely cannot unsee it. It's like, oh, there she is. And now I've been working with haunted history for close to 2 years now. And when we go out on the bus tours, just about every single night, I see them, I can feel them, sometimes hear them, but I definitely know that they're there and they're with me.
Well, you've definitely gotten more photographic phenomena on your tours than I've seen in most cases. I mean, over 25 years of doing this, you get a lot more physical phenomena on photographs. And not just you personally, but just the people on your tours seem to get a lot of physical phenomena. You know, let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that happens over in City Park, because we have this area, and I don't want to give out the location because, of course, we don't want to give out our tour locations, but you know, we have a place in a very large park in New Orleans where there's just one particular area that seems to be definitely a portal to the other side. And interestingly enough, it's most of the time this occurs in cemeteries, and in this particular case, is not a cemetery. However, it was a plantation at one time, and who knows, maybe that's where a family cemetery might have been at some point. I don't know, or maybe even a Native American cemetery at some point, because it is a very old area. So tell us a little bit about some of the things that are happening out there when you go out there.
Well, you're definitely right about that. The area where we go, as soon as I get there, just about every night, I can feel the spirits. They are all around us, basically 360 degrees. They do like to stand back, and they do like to watch us when we're there. There are 4 spirits in particular that are very happy when I show up. They're children. One of them is a little boy named George, and I have become very familiar with George. Over the past 2 years, it seems that we have actually had a relationship as if he was alive. He comes out every night and sees me, and I just know that he's there. He does like to be in pictures. We've gotten several pictures of George. Pictures, full body apparitions, and of him in an orb. We do know his story, and I know you're researching the story too. But George tends to pop out every night, and the spirits are all around. It's not just him there. We do get pictures of other spirits there. It seems when we go there, I just kind of open my mind and I let them pull me, whichever way they want to pull me. And I walk that way. The people on my tour, I'll tell them, I really need y'all to take pictures over here. And it's just dark. They think I'm crazy. but they take the pictures. We get back on the bus and they start going through their pictures, and I start hearing screams and yelling, and we get orbs, we get full body apparitions, we get mist, we get everything at City Park. I kind of have a feeling George is mainly responsible for that. In fact, this past Saturday night, I brought a 9:30 tour group out there, and I was talking to them, and I look over, because you scan when you talk, and I look past the group, and I just suddenly stopped. I just gasped. I didn't say a word, because I usually don't say anything to the groups about all the spirits that are there. I kind of don't want to scare them. Don't know how they react. Don't know what they think. But I gasped, and then I kind of had to take a deep breath, and I continued with the story. Well, what I saw was George. He was standing for just a split second over by the bridge. There was a lot of flowers that had just bloomed, azaleas, white azaleas. And he looked at me for that split second. I gasped, and he disappeared. After I finished my story with the tour group, I walked over there because I felt like he was pulling me. And then I got this immediate thought in my head. George just wanted to show me the flowers. The flowers had just started blooming because spring is coming now. And I told him, I said, thanks for pulling me over here. I see the flowers. They are very beautiful. It's just a very, very calming feeling when I'm there. I get off the bus, and every single time I hear in my head, she's back, she's here. And they're happy. So I think that's why we're so successful. My friend that's sensitive to spirits believes that George and the kids know that I'm a mom, and that somehow that connects us. And I think that connects me to the spirits on the tour too, because I'm very proud of being a mom, and they know that. I think that's why we're successful with the pictures too.
Well, we have another spirit that's out there, though, too. You have captured something that's quite frightening, though, out in that area as well. Tell us a little bit about that thing, and a little bit about the backstory. I don't want to give away the story on the tour, but a little bit about the backstory is that a couple of years ago, we had someone come and take the tour who happened to be a former NOPD cop, and he told one of the tour guides that there had been some murders out in the area, murders of children. And so far, we've been unable to 100% verify any names or dates or anything like that. And we're still working on the investigation. So that's why I don't want to give away a whole lot of information. Plus, we don't have all of the story. But shortly after that, a few months later, I went out there, and a psychic friend of mine was on the bus. And when he got off the bus, I had never mentioned the story to anybody else just because I didn't have enough information. But he immediately walked past the group and walked to the bend in a body of water where the murder supposedly happened. And he just started, pacing back and forth, and kind of went into a trance and started talking about ripples in the water and 9 to 14. And apparently the children that were killed were between the ages of 9 and 14.
Right.
So it made us look a little bit closer at the situation, and little by little over the last 3 years that we've done the tour, we've started getting more and more photographs of the area, of the children in the area. But it's not just the children that we're getting photographs of, because I had gotten, one night when I was doing the tour a few years back, I had a small group, about 11 people, and they asked me to take their picture in front of the tree, the big tree that's there. And I did, and when I did, right behind them was a very large man that was facing the tree. And I know he wasn't there when I took the picture, and he certainly wasn't there after I took the picture. Literally, it was someone who just appeared in the picture, and he looked solid. And we've gotten other more frightening pictures of this large man. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, because this might be the killer.
Right. Definitely. We have gotten a lot of pictures of this man several different times, and he is frightening. He is probably the one spirit on the tour that's scary. I'm not really worried about any other spirit, just him. And sometimes he is there and sometimes he's not. So that's kind of a good thing that sometimes he's not there. But we have gotten a lot of pictures of him. Very tall, thin man. I've actually seen him, I think, twice out of the corner of my eye, just walk by. While we do believe this is the killer, he tends to stay in the background, and I'm not quite sure why. And the people, I do let people know that, and they're worried that he's there with the kids. And I have no explanation of why he's there or how the kids are coping with it, the spirit children. I do think George is the protector of the other children because George seems to come out more. Sometimes we do get the red orbs there, which I looked it up. Red means protector orbs. So, but this man is very frightening, and I don't talk about him very much. I only include him in the story, and I don't talk about him any more than what I have to. I just don't want to give him the energy. One time I did, and I paid for it dearly. One time people were asking me about this killer, and I just knew in the back of my head I did not want to talk about this guy standing there. But they kept asking me the questions, so I did. I answered their questions. Well, I get on the bus, and of course it's very dark. It's 10:30 at night, and I feel something in my neck right by my vocal cords. And you just kind of brush it with your hand. You don't know what it is, and there's something on my neck, and I don't know what it is. I grab it, pull it off, and I don't even know what it was. But next thing I know, I'm pulling a stinger out of my neck where my vocal cords are. That was about half an inch long. And my neck started to swell. I really couldn't speak. The next stop, I had to take a Benadryl. So this bee or wasp or whatever it was came up and stung me right in my vocal cords the one time I talked about this killer. And I couldn't talk. I eventually did for the rest of the tour. I pushed through it, but it was a little frightening. And I kind of started wondering, why would this big old bug be out at 10:30 at night on a cool night? It's kind of was just very strange and very weird. And I'm like, well, it's the one time I talked about the killer. I'm never going to do that again. And he must not have liked it. So you do have to be careful with him.
Yeah, it sounds pretty scary because things have seemed to progress a lot further along since I was personally doing the tour myself, because I haven't done it in over a year. So it certainly seems like things have definitely progressed in a different direction out there, with it being a little more frightening, with things showing up and manifesting and so forth.
Right.
It's very, very interesting. Now, but that's not the only place that you're getting phenomena, though. I mean, we've been getting phenomena, and I know we've got several cemeteries that are out in that area as well. And again, when I was doing the tour, I mean, there were a few instances in a couple of the cemeteries where not just on photographs, but I physically experienced, not just myself, but other people saw people walking, and it looked like, thinking they're with the group, you're calling them to you, and I'm like, hey, come on, we're getting ready to leave. And literally they're in front of your face a few feet down, and you just see them vanish into thin air.
Yep. That's exactly what happened to us, Kalila. Yep, you're right.
So tell us a little bit about your experience with some of these, I mean, and we're talking full-bodied apparition, folks, and that's really, full-body apparitions are very, very rare. There's several different stages of manifestation of spirit photography, and full-bodied apparition, of course, is what you want to get. That's the big thing to get. And it's very rare to get. Not only are we getting full-bodied apparitions in these locations on photographs, but we are seeing them with the naked eye.
Stay tuned for more Scariest Paranormal Radio.
Submitted for your approval. New Orleans. Seductive, magical, mysterious, and haunted. There is no place on this earth with as much ghost and vampire activity as New Orleans. Imagine, if you will, a tour. A tour that takes you to sites in the French Quarter of actual documented hauntings. The Haunted History Tour is just that tour. Every day, every night, all year round. This tour has been featured on ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN. And it's available to you. Are there ghosts and vampires in the French Quarter? Find out by taking the tour that everyone is talking about. The Haunted History Tour. For more information, call Haunted History Tours at 861-2727. That's 861-2727. This is not a Halloween spookhouse. This is real.
You're listening to Scariest Paranormal Radio.
What has your experience been, in some of these cemeteries with this?
There's one cemetery in particular, Charity Hospital Cemetery. I have seen full body apparitions with my eyes on 3 different occasions in close to 2 years. And I'm talking about people that look like you and I. Like, I could completely describe them to a sketch artist and they could, sketch them out.
Right. Yeah. They look like solid people. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's people. Yes, exactly. There was this one night in one particular cemetery where I had a very small group in there, only about 9 people. And we were in the cemetery. I was talking to them about the burial procedures. And all of a sudden, to my right, a woman starts walking away from the tour group. And, as a tour guide, my first thought in my head is, wait a minute, she shouldn't be walking away from me. She should be staying with the group. She was a white woman. She had on blue jeans, a blue sweater, light blue sweater. It was a V-neck. She had blonde hair, and it was pulled back in a ponytail. She was about, I'd say about 5'5", 5'6", and she started walking away to my right-hand side. And I was like, man, she needs to stay with the tour group. Well, as she's walking away, she vanishes, just walks just in thin air, gone. And so I stopped talking and I asked my tour group, did anybody just see that woman walking away to the right here? And 8 of the 9 people looked at me like I had 3 heads. They're like, we didn't see anything. What are you talking about? Well, there was a woman standing to my right, and she had her head down and she was shaking. And she looked at me and she said, yes, ma'am, I did see that woman. I said, was she a real person? And she goes, no, ma'am, she was not. So the apparition walked to the right, and only myself and the woman to my right saw her vanish. That was one of 3 times in this particular cemetery that I saw a full body apparition that looks like you and I. The second time was absolutely incredible to me. It was probably, they were all incredible. I had brought the group in the cemetery, once again, talking about burial procedures. And I noticed I'm facing the street. The group is facing the cemetery. And I looked out onto the street, and there was a woman standing there on the sidewalk. And she was about 5'5", 5'4" maybe. She was kind of short. She was African. She had long hair, and it was braided. And the front of her hair was pulled back. And she had on blue jeans. Once again, I got a blue shirt, but it was denim. And she was carrying grocery bags, white grocery bags. She had about 2 on each arm. And it looked like she was waiting for an Uber. I mean, nowadays, that's what pops into your head. And I'm watching this woman as I'm talking to the group, and it suddenly dawns on me, this is a really weird place for her to be waiting for an Uber. And there's no grocery store around here. So I started getting a little confused. Well, I finished up with the tour group. I let them walk around the cemetery. I went to the gate of the cemetery. The minute I set foot outside of the cemetery, I looked down the street where the girl was, and she was gone. She just completely disappeared the minute I crossed the threshold of the cemetery. Well, our tour bus was there. I asked the bus driver, did you see that woman standing there with grocery bags? And the bus driver said, no, Charmaine, I really didn't see anyone. I was, looking at Facebook on my phone. But she told me, I felt like there was someone around me. I did feel a presence. So I explained the girl, and the bus driver didn't see her. And the bus driver, we got on the bus, we went down Canal, and for no lie, about 5 blocks, we were looking in every single car. We're like, well, maybe she did catch the Uber. But we're looking at every single car. She was nowhere to be found. There were no cars around, nothing. This apparition just disappeared. And then, Kalila, it hit me, the story you told us about how the spirits after Hurricane Katrina, they were getting in taxi cabs. And then they were disappearing.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
So,
and that, and just to kind of, update people who are just listening in who aren't familiar with that, Katrina happened in 2005. And, Hurricane Katrina it hit on August 31st of 2005. And we didn't get the flood until like 48 hours later. The water started rising originally back up through the drainage system because the water was just kind of filling back up. The pumps were not turned on to drain the water out of the city, and it kind of backed back up through like the drainage system. And so the water rose very, very quickly. So I mean, it was 2 days after the hurricane. People thought they were safe. People were doing what people did. People were, catching streetcars. People were walking home with grocery bags. People were, sitting in coffee shops. They were walking their dogs. They were riding their bikes. I mean, people were just out on the streets. It was broad daylight. And when this came up on them, a lot of people were caught off guard. A lot of people tried to outrun it. Then they wound up trying to outswim it. I know one guy, I won't name names, but I know one guy who told me that he was on his bicycle and he saw it coming up and he was close enough to an overpass that he was able to pedal up the overpass to escape it. Right. But a lot of people drowned. A lot of people were caught off guard and they drowned. And it wasn't because the city told people to evacuate and they didn't do it. It's just that, 48 hours later, generally the storm has passed, you're safe. And right. it didn't work out that way this time. And people were really caught off guard. And, as a tour company, we didn't have any business for like 2 years. So, I was doing minimal work for the city. I was actually teaching at Blue Cliff College at the time, but I was still getting the email for the company. And I was getting constant emails with people going, who were repairing their homes out there saying, I see people out here late at night on Canal Street, on the streetcar line. I see people walking up and down the streetcar line. And I kind of attributed it at first to PTSD. I figured, well, we're all traumatized. Right. Of course, people are seeing these things. And as time went on, and, I started hearing stories about, cab drivers, because back then you didn't have Ubers, you didn't have Lyfts. Right. You had cabs. And cab drivers were saying, we'd hear from them and they'd say, well, somebody called me and they wanted to be picked up late at night in front of one of the cemeteries on Canal Street. And I picked them up and they gave me an address. And when I got to the address, the house wasn't there or the house was boarded up. Yeah. And of course, the person wasn't in the cab anymore. Now, this reeks of urban legend. Everybody's got the story of the disappearing cab fare. But in this case, it was very unusual because it was very consistent and it was happening a lot. And at first, like I said, I kind of wrote it off to being hysterical. But later, much, much later, when we started doing the tour and I realized that is where they put the Katrina Memorial and that's where they buried the people who were never claimed, and it took 3 years to actually get them buried, it made sense because looking back at the time frame, it was about 3 years when it stopped, when people stopped talking about the ghost stories. Right. And that's when they were finally put to rest. So there's still stories about a priest that shows up down there, and they see him in the early mornings coming in there and walking down with the incense, blessing the memorial and blessing the cemetery. Right. So, there's still a lot of stories about it. And if you're familiar with the area, if you drive through the city, there's like blocks and blocks down there that are still uninhabited, even, 15 years later. We have areas of our city that's still like a ghost town. It looks like a war zone. Right. So, it's not surprising in the least. But, some of it's, I don't know. We've had people come running out of that cemetery, too. So there's some pretty scary stuff in the back of there, right?
Definitely. We, that cemetery, the spirits, this might sound silly, but they absolutely love to photobomb people when they take selfies. And they do. They'll be in the background. I have, no lie, 7 pictures, at least 7 pictures of the spirits in the background wanting to take pictures. And that did happen to 3 people. They took a picture. There was a spirit in the background. They looked at it right away. One girl ran screaming out of the cemetery to the bus. And then the couple stayed, took another picture, and guess what? The spirit was still there. He was like, no, I still want to get in the picture. But yeah, that cemetery is very, very active. We do get the photo bombs. In fact, the last one was in December when I got one. I was actually talking about it, saying, well, if you take a selfie, you might get a photo bomb. And a guy was doing that, a grown man. and he looked at his picture when I was talking, and he screamed, and he started looking around him. He obviously did get bombed, and he ran out of the cemetery because he's on the sidewalk and he was smoking a cigarette, shaking. Every stop after that, he smoked a cigarette, and he just couldn't believe it. He's like, I can't believe this happened. You were talking about it, and it just happened. And I kind of like, well, I like it when the spirits kind of listen and want to get in the picture, especially when I'm talking about it. But yeah, I kind of have a feeling that in the cemetery, I see them hiding behind the trees. And I think you and I were there when we both saw that one night. When they were
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of, yeah,
There's some things, and the thing is, though, I truly believe. I mean, the thing is, and I always tell these people, people this all the time, and I want to reiterate this: the people who are buried there are not still hanging out in the cemetery. You don't get buried and then you hang out in the cemetery. These people have moved on through the light. Once you're on the other side, you can come back and forth. There's definite
right,
communication. It happens all the time. But there are some spirits who never cross over, and I've said this before, for whatever reason. And there's guardian spirits in these cemeteries from a long, long time ago.
right,
And they're there to protect the cemetery. This is why you hear stories about people who go in and they take things they're not supposed to take, or they do things they're not supposed to do, and then bad things happen to them. And this is why we tell people you always have to be very, very respectful. But
right.
we have stories of people. In fact, we had a guide many years ago who went into one of the cemeteries, and he went in during the day and saw a tomb that had been cracked open, and he saw bones in there, and he took them home with him. And he called me at like 3 o'clock in the morning, crying like a baby. And, I said, what did you do? And he says, well, I got this big black orb over my bed, and everywhere I move, it's moving with me, and it's coming at me. And I said, what did you do? And he told me, he said, well, I saw some bones, and I thought it would be cool to take them home and show the kids. And I was like, okay, that was a bad idea, really bad idea.
Yeah.
And he says, well, this thing won't stop coming at me. And I said, the only thing you can do is to get in your car, go back to the cemetery. And it just so happened that the cemetery he actually took us from were the back of St. Louis number 3. And I said, you're going to have to go back there and wait for the cemetery to open and go put this back. You got to go put it back.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to keep seeing that thing, and it's going to get worse. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. It's nothing to taunt, nothing to play with. I mean, it's cool, but once you start taunting things or trying to play with them, it can get you in trouble. It really can get you in trouble. And unfortunately, in our cemeteries down here, now I don't know if you worked here or not when we had this. I think you did, though, when there was one of the cemeteries where people were doing rituals in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, people were doing some kind of weird rituals in the cemetery, and God only knows what they're doing. I mean, there's people here who try to, bargain with the dead and try to get them to do things for them. But there was one cemetery that one of the guides was taking people into, where there was a candle down in it and weird looking symbols and so forth. And who knows what people are trying to do. But once you start doing that sort of thing, you're opening up doors, and you don't really know what you're opening up. And so it's not advisable. I mean, normally in the context of just taking a tour, something's not going to attach to you. But, we had to get to the point where there was so much activity out here. We had to get people to quit drinking on the tour, because one of the things you don't want to do when there's this kind of spiritual activity is to have people that are drunk,
right,
or engaging in recreational drugs, because that can cause some of these negative entities to attach to you. And we had people that were really getting drunk and out here tripping over tombs and stuff, and it was just a bad combination, a very, very bad combination. Yeah. So we actually got to the point where it was like, okay, this is not good. You can't drink on the bus.
Right.
Drinking and going into a cemetery at night, not a good idea. It's not a good combination ever. Now talk a little bit about, were you the one who had the picture? There was one picture in particular, I'm going to have to post some of these on the site. There's one picture in particular that was taken in front of the other cemetery further down, and it has, you see something in the picture behind the woman, and clearly it's behind the fence, because the fence was locked. Right. And it looks like some sort of miniature Grim Reaper. So, I mean, this thing does not look human. I've
Yeah.
seen things on some of these pictures that are clearly not human,
Yes, that
but
was
there's
me.
something.
Yes. Yes,
And
that was
I
me.
mean, what in the world is what is this stuff? I mean, have you ever
I
has anybody? I mean, I realize some of these things could be apps, but I don't think that one was, just simply because I could see the bars of the fence in front of it. I don't see how anybody could have put an app behind that fence
right.
the way
That
it
yeah.
was.
The girl, we were outside of the cemetery and she took the picture. And there's another picture before that picture of I don't think I sent this to you, of the thing moving into place. So
No,
this,
I haven't seen that one.
okay, I'm gonna send that one to you. The thing, the thing that's standing there behind her is very disturbing, is the way I use the word. I have no idea what it is. And it is very disturbing. And I'm kind of glad, I'm glad it stayed in the cemetery. Um, and the girl, immediately after she took the picture, she came to me and she said, "What is this?" I mean, she was scared to death. And I looked at it and I said, "I have no idea what that is." But it's a little small figure and it has a hood. Some people think it looks like a dog, but some, like you said, like a little grim reaper.
Right.
Um,
Is that the same thing? Was there another picture of that thing?
yeah, it was moving in the place. The I'll send that to you, but it was
Yeah,
moving in
do.
the place. It was crazy, and the reason why the girl was taking that picture is because she was trying to get the picture of Sadie's grave. There's a little 2-year-old grave that's in that particular cemetery that's right up front. And Sadie, I'm actually, I'm very attached with Sadie. I do think now. I actually go to that cemetery and bring Sadie's rocks. I bring her actually rose quartz rocks, and talk to her every now and
Explain
then.
why we're bringing rocks
Um,
to her,
okay,
specifically rocks, because a lot of people might not understand why you would
right,
bring her rocks
rocks.
instead of flowers.
This particular cemetery is a Jewish cemetery. And the custom for the Jewish religion is you place rocks on the grave. That's a way to saying hello. The Jewish people do not use flowers at all. The rocks stay there. They say hello. Actually, it did have a Jewish person that they actually, when they went to Israel, they brought rocks from Israel and put it on the grave, because you were actually supposed to bring rocks from your home, and Israel is their home. And you put the rocks from your home on the Jewish grave so that your loved ones always had a piece of home in the cemetery with them. Um, so I actually, once again, being a mom, became very attached to Sadie. And I went, after we saw this horrible being there, and it really scared me. And for some reason, it scared me while thinking about Sadie. I went and I bought rose quartz rocks. And rose quartz helps you relax, it helps you sleep. And I've been putting rose quartz rocks on Sadie's grave. Um, I've actually had to put 4 there because they keep disappearing. I don't know if people are stealing them or what's going on.
Well,
Um,
it's New Orleans, so I
yeah,
mean, just saying.
yeah. But I do put them on there. I just want Sadie to feel at peace, to feel that she's safe, especially after we saw this being. And since it is a Jewish cemetery, I've actually had 2 other Jewish people on my tour to look at the picture. And one woman told me she actually believes it's this type of Jewish, I want to say demon, but it's not a demon the way we would think evil, bad demon. The way she described it to me, it was a Jewish, I don't know, demon being that what people would do when Jewish people would go out of town, they'd leave cookies out in their house for this little being to come and protect their house while they were gone. So it protected,
Interesting.
yeah, it protected the home, but it kept the everyone else away. So
Yeah, that's not
that's,
really a demon.
no, but
But
I think,
again, a guardian spirit, and they can be quite vicious if
yeah,
they're protective.
that's exactly what she was saying. Now here's the weird part.
We'll have to ask
When I was,
Toast. He's our
yeah,
Jewish cemetery expert.
right. Now, when I was showing this picture, one woman, this is another different tour, one woman looked at it and she goes, "Oh, that looks like," and it does, that looks like that little being from the movies Harry Potter, that little goblin from Harry Potter. And it does. It looks exactly like this goblin in the Harry Potter movies. And the goblin this is weird, the goblin in the Harry Potter movies were stayed at home to protect their home in the
Okay.
movie.
All right.
And I'm like, oh, well, we might have a little bit of a connection going on here.
We'll have
So,
to
yeah,
research that and find out what that is. But yeah, I mean, yeah, they're very strange looking. I mean, to me, I don't know. It was very bizarre looking, and I'd never seen anything like it.
yeah,
Yeah, very strange. Very
yes.
strange.
Well, in that cemetery, in that Jewish cemetery, we would get full body apparitions all the time. Um,
Well,
and
right, yeah, yeah. We got
yeah,
some very strange apparitions in there. That whole block, that whole block. I mean,
yes,
one Halloween, I was in one of the ones closer to City Park Avenue, and I was out there. Another tour guide was out there, and we actually saw lights, like car headlights, coming through the middle of St. Patrick's Cemetery, which is a Catholic cemetery, which is locked up at night. Can't possibly drive through it. And she said, "Who is driving through St. Patrick?" And I was like, I don't know. When we ran down there with the tour group, and of course, when we got there, nothing was there, but we literally saw the illusion of headlights on a car coming right down the middle of the cemetery. And then like everything else, it just vanished. So there's definitely something. There's something
there,
down there that
there's,
represents some sort of intersection between the two worlds, and clearly it's not just ghosts or spirits that we're seeing down there. There's actually some other types of beings that are making their way through and manifesting on people's pictures. And some people are getting
yes.
quite frightened over it.
Oh, they are, yes. They would come up to me and say, "What does this mean? What does this mean?" Especially in the cemetery where we would get the photo bombs. And I would tell them, don't be frightened. All they're doing is communicating with you. The spirits communicate very differently than what we're used to. They're not alive. So don't be frightened. They just want to communicate with you. They just want to get in your picture. They were human once. They just want some company and they just want to talk. In the cemetery, where we do see the people walking around, there was a woman that her husband took a picture of her. I'm sure I sent this one to you. Her husband took a picture of her, and there's a spirit leaning on her shoulder in a very loving way.
Send me
And
that
he
again.
shows,
I don't recall
okay,
seeing that.
okay. And the spirit doesn't really, well, it's a spirit. He's leaning on, I think it's a man, he's leaning on her shoulder. Well, when the woman showed me this picture, she actually broke down, started crying. And after she told me the story, I started crying too. Um,
Oh, wow.
she, it was her birthday. That's why she came to New Orleans. It was her birthday. And right before they got on the plane, she found out she had cancer.
Oh, no.
And right after this trip to New Orleans, when she got back home, she was going to start chemotherapy.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
I'm
pretty
sure
heavy.
yeah, I'm sure the spirit was comforting her and he knew that, and was just letting her know everything was going to be okay. And when we were talking, I mean, both of us were crying on the tour, when she's telling me this. And it was a loving moment, a very loving moment for her.
I started the bus tour in July of 2017. It started as a regular ghost tour, the usual ghost tour, doing the stories of legends and history and all. And really, it's really become more of a paranormal tour than anything, don't you think?
Oh, definitely, definitely. We do get pictures. We get video. People do videos, and they have the spirits in the videos too. We have gotten some voice recordings too of spirits coming through people's cell phones, and they're like, Charmaine, what is this? Charmaine, what is this? We listen, we hear, we look at the pictures, and it's the spirits. They're coming out. They're letting us know they're there. And the people they're just, their mind is blown. They're like, I can't believe this. I've had girls, like we said before, run screaming out of the cemetery. I've had girls crying, getting on the bus. I've actually had people, after the first two stops, not even get off the bus. They're like, okay, that's it, I'm done. They're going to stay on the bus. And I'm like, okay, that's completely up to you, but we're still ghost hunting out here. We still want to communicate with them. Tell my people, you're going to learn the history of the city, and we're going to be doing some ghost hunting because they're here and they're ready.
And they're waiting. I mean, they know you're coming, so they're waiting. They love the attention. But yeah, more and more, there's a lot going on out there from a paranormal perspective, and it's a lot more. I've seen more on the ghost bus tour in the last 3 years than I've seen, in 20 something years in the French Quarter, as far as what you experience in the course of just a 2-hour tour. Without spending a whole lot of time there and doing extensive research and, just taking a tour and a quick little visit. Yeah, I mean, I've seen more phenomena there than I've seen anywhere. And I was pretty blown away by it. I was surprised.
Right. Yeah, we are not at the stops for very long, but we get a lot. I think it's because we're bringing the energy. The groups are excited. The people are excited, even fearful. And all that energy, the spirits just love it. They grab onto that. And actually, Kalila, it's not only the people, but we've had phenomenon happen with people's cell phones.
I bet. Yeah. Electronic equipment. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. We've had cell phones, of course, lose charge. I've had cell phones on at least 2 different occasions that I can remember, probably more, take pictures on their own. The person will have their cell phone in their hand, the cell phone's just lying flat in the hand, and it's taking pictures. It's just
I've
on
heard
its
of
own.
that. Yeah, I've heard of that from different people. I've heard of that. And one of the other things I've seen, I don't know if anybody on your tours had it happen or not, but this was really strange because a group of the ticket sellers had gone out there one night and they sent it in. And then I found out that other people had experienced it too, where they're taking a picture in one of the cemeteries. There's a certain spot, like it's just right there at where two of the cemeteries meet, and they take a picture of a group of people. And in the picture, one person will look like they're walking away.
Yes.
Have you seen any of those?
Yes. And I know the group you're talking about. That happened with them.
Yep. It's very strange because it's like, okay, it was like, wait, well, why is he walking away? They were like, well, no, he wasn't. And it's almost like, the only thing I could think of, there was an old Twilight, so of course this is going to show my age, that's okay. And a lot of people won't relate to this, but there was an old Twilight Zone episode of where they would take a picture, and the picture would show what's going to happen next. And that's what I thought about, because, it was like, okay, wait, why is he walking away? Why is his back turned? And they said, no, it wasn't. But you see a picture of him as if he's walked off from the group, but in actuality, he was with the group. And that, I've never seen anything like that. That was very strange. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. And I think there was another picture that got turned in that had that same strange little phenomena on there.
Yes, there's a picture. That group got the guy that was just standing there walking away. There's other pictures that I know my tour groups have gotten of their group, and someone's missing. And they're standing right there. They're not in the picture, but they are standing there. That has happened at least 2 or 3 times on my tour.
Right. Yeah, there's some strange stuff going on out there. There really is. So, and I'm sure we're speaking of strange stuff going on out there. It's pretty bizarre. I mean, people don't realize what they're stepping into out there. They have no idea how active that area is.
Oh, yeah.
But there's definitely an intersection of the two worlds colliding out there for sure.
Right.
And in fact, I'm going to do other shows with some of the other tour guides that do that tour because other people are getting phenomena as well.
Yes.
And I want to stay on top of this and share it with people because it's pretty amazing. I'm amazed by it. It's certainly much more phenomena than I ever expected to see.
Yeah, and I speaking of other a tour guide that I was training took my tour, and he started tour guides. I was training a tour guide for this tour.
Mm-hmm.
He took my tour, and he started taking pictures, and he did get a full body apparition while on my tour.
Oh, wow!
Taking pictures, and he got a full body apparition in one of his pictures. And he told me, Charmaine, this is the only time I've gotten this. He said, I can't believe this picture. This is something I can't explain. And I'm blown away. And I got it on your tour. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what happens.
Stay tuned for more Scariest Paranormal Radio.
Submitted for your approval. New Orleans. Seductive, magical, mysterious, and haunted. There is no place on this earth with as much ghost and vampire activity as New Orleans. Imagine, if you will, a tour that takes you to sites in the French Quarter of actual documented hauntings. The Haunted History Tour is just that tour. Every day, every night, all year round. This tour has been featured on ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN. And it's available to you. Are there ghosts and vampires in the French Quarter? Find out by taking the tour that everyone is talking about, the Haunted History Tour. For more information, call Haunted History Tours at 861-2727. That's 861-2727. This is not a Halloween spookhouse. This is real.
You're listening to Scariest Paranormal Radio.
Have you ever tried to get any EVP out there?
We have. A couple of people have on my tour. Mainly what we'll get is heavy breathing. We will hear voices on the EVP, but not really anything we can make out. No real words that we can make out. We do hear a name in one of the cemeteries. We heard it over and over again for a little while, and the name was Leanne or Anne. People kept hearing that name in one particular cemetery over and over again.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we'll have to figure out who she is too.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. This has been really exciting, and of course, this is one of those situations where we'll say to be continued because we are going to eventually get back out there this summer and try to do some more investigating and try to get some more phenomena, get some EVP. I'm going to be talking to some of the other guides who do these locations as well because they've gotten phenomena out there. And so we're going to keep everybody posted on new discoveries and everything out here on some of this stuff because it is it's very strange. It's extremely strange. But anyway, for those of you out here, if you're going to be in New Orleans and you want to take the bus tour with Charmaine or with one of the other guides, the website is hauntedhistorytours.com. And the tour, we have a lot of great walking tours, but this particular tour is the Dead of Night Ghost and Haunts bus tour. And we offer it at 7 p.m. and 9:30 nightly, 7 days a week, unless there's a parade or something that we can't run it. But it's a 2-hour-long tour. We're going to take you to a bunch of different locations. You actually get on and off of the bus. You actually get to go and see these sites, take photographs, experience things. And, it's not just a tour. It is totally a paranormal experience. So, go to our website, hauntedhistorytours.com. You can also call 504-861-2727. And hopefully you'll come and visit New Orleans and take a tour with Charmaine.
Definitely. Yeah, we'd love to see you. Spirits are
Thank
waiting.
you, Charmaine. Yes, they're waiting. Charmaine's waiting. The spirits are waiting. So thank you, Charmaine. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I hope you join us next Friday for another episode of Scariest Paranormal Radio. Pleasant dreams.